everybody. Sean and Kelly Price. What are you laughing at? You wanted me to do hi, boys and girls.
I kind of did. Okay. So what are we doing today, Kel?
Today's hook is a case study in the perfect buyer.
Yes, this buyer did it absolutely perfectly.
You're going to know who you are soon if you're watching this. Because you were amazing.
Okay, do I get to do first step?
Yes, go.
Okay.
First step.
So the first step that this buyer did was we did a buyer consult, a buyer strategy session where we went through and gave her a bird's eye view of the transaction. And
we do that for everyone.
We do that for all of our buyers, yes. And she listened to every step that we said. So one of our first steps is to build your team early. So that's your title company, your lender, your inspector, and your realtor. And and she did that.
Yeah.
She did all of her research and her decision making in the beginning so that when the time came, she was ready to go. So she put her team together actually before we even really got out and started looking.
Yeah,
so
and we do these with all of the buyers. We tell them the first step is you really need to put this together. Not very many people listen. They only think about getting their home inspector once they submit an offer.
Right.
Actually, sometimes once it's accepted.
Yeah, under contract.
Right? They get their pre-approval letter and then later they go and they change lenders or something. You're certainly able to do that, but it creates some stress on the transaction and it does hold up the timeline.
Yeah, and as you're going to see, because she did this stuff early, we were able to move this transaction extremely quickly. So that was step one. She got her team together. She knew who she was working with. She knew who was going to be involved in the transaction.
Yeah. Step two, she got her POFA, her pre-offer full approval. Okay, this is a fully underwritten approval by the buyer. She submitted all of her documents. The credit was pulled. Everything was done as far as qualifying this buyer. The only thing that was left then was to qualify the property, and that really goes quickly once you're under contract.
So that POFA was very, very strong because she was able to waive a finance contingency, which we'll get into in a second, and she could close extremely quick. She was able to close in 10 days.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, sorry. Okay, next. What was the next step?
Taking away my things.
Okay, so one of the things that she did too was she got very specific on her search criteria. She knew exactly what it was that she was looking for. Our average buyer takes about 12 and a half showings to get under contract. That includes buyers that have to do multiple offers and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, she was able to get under contract with one offer and only 5 showings. So she knew exactly what she was looking for. She walked in, she saw the property, and that was it. We put the offer in, and she won it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's okay for it to take a little bit whenever you first start looking for properties. Like, I want this many bedrooms or this many baths. I want this.
Narrow it down.
Yeah, but we go on the first few and it's like, oh, wait a minute. I have to be able to back out of the driveway really easily. Or I have to, there are things that we can narrow it down and then great. We don't even go look at those anymore.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
That's
okay.
right.
All right, what did she do next?
She got a pre-offer inspection as well. I'm all about the pre-offer stuff.
Yes.
So whenever she went in to look at it the first time, she's like, yes, you know what? I think this is the one. She already knew the inspector she was going to use, so it was great. Get him on the phone. Hey, can you come in?
You did his inspection.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yep.
It was great. So we submitted the offer, I think that evening. So it was, this takes us into submitted the strong offer, which included no inspection contingency because she'd already done it.
Yep.
It included no finance contingency because she's already approved.
Yep.
And then they were able to do the quick closing because they didn't need that time and waiting for her to submit the documents and all this, right? She already had all that done. It was a matter of title, really, and that can usually works pretty quickly. So the last thing. Yeah,
and a quick note on the no finance contingency and the no inspection contingency. The beautiful thing about that was she had the strength of the offer, but she didn't have the risk. She did the inspection, she did the finance contingency, she just did it all before the offer. So she was fully protected and had a strong offer. And then the last bit was when she put her offer in, we knew what the property was going to appraise for, so we did an appraisal buffer. And basically an appraisal buffer is you offer the seller a buffer range of let's say $5,000. Where if the appraisal comes in a little bit low, that buffer will, the buyer agrees to go ahead and pay that buffer. Well, we knew what the appraisal was going to come in at, so we knew that there was very little risk of that, but it still strengthened her offer. So
and how do we know what the appraisal is going to come in at? It's because we're amazing at comping properties. We're pretty good at determining what that's going to be. And then she was able to say, you know what, I want it bad enough, or the risk is worth it enough that I'm willing to go a little bit over.
Yep.
So it was just her really knowing, having that clarity on what she wanted and how badly she wanted it.
And the confidence in the property. So,
Right.
so she
And
ended
in
up,
her agents and knowing what it was.
so she ended up submitting an offer, no finance contingency, no appraisal or appraisal buffer, no inspection contingency, 10-day closing. She was just a strong buyer, and the seller had no option. They took the offer. It was the first offer that she put out, and they took it.
That's true. For a cash buyer, or for the seller, she felt like a cash buyer.
Exactly.
Without the oftentimes cash price.
Yeah, because they'll often try to underbid because they feel like they have all these protections.
So she was beautiful. So what does this mean for your sellers? Well,
so from the seller's perspective, it was a very, very strong offer, but the seller's agent could have really messed this up. For example, we just did a long video about condo docs. Those condo docs have to be given to the buyer, and the buyer has 3 days with those condo docs. If this seller's agent did not have already ordered those condo docs and then waited until we got a ratified contract, they never would have been able to close in 10 days. We actually had the transaction that just closed where we got the condo docs on day 28.
Yeah,
so,
and this was because I don't know what happened, but we follow up. Hey, it's time. We need these, and they kind of dodged the question, but had just ordered it the final day. That I'm like, hey, okay, it's like we're gonna have to delay settlement if we don't get these in. And that does happen. So the other thing that can get in the way of a perfect and pristine buyer.
Yeah. So from the seller side, make sure that you let your
that agent, I mean, he was great. He was on top of it.
Yep.
He had that ready, and everything
fantastic.
was good. So that's our case study of the perfect buyer.
Okay, so the steps are: do your buyer strategy session, put your team together, get your PUFA.
Yeah,
I said it right.
That's okay.
Get your pre-offer inspection, submit a strong offer, and that's the best you can do. That's the way to compete in this market when there are still competitions.
And like you said, the buyer strategy, we do that for every first buyer. Just get on, it's a quick Zoom call. It's everything is, the slides laid out, so you see the steps in the process. We have really great lenders and home inspectors, title companies that we have really great track records working with. Did I say track records?
Track records.
Track records working with. We're never going to steer you to anyone. Use whomever you want. We will work beautifully with everyone. It's just some of them take a little more hand holding than others, but we can help guide you.
Okay, so let's get to the market report and see what's been going on this last 7 days. All right, so let's dive into the numbers here, and we're going to see that there's been a little bit of a change over the last week or so, but there's a little bit of an anomaly that occurred this past 7 days. Whether that's indicating a change in the market or not, we're going to have to see as time goes on, but this could be a first marker, or it could just be a little glitch. So let's dive into the numbers and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. As always, our buyer activity line is our orange line, our inventory is our blue line, and then this is our seller's market indicator. And as we've seen in the last several weeks, it's been kind of up and down, but the seller's market has weakened a little bit in the last 3 to 4 weeks. But what I was talking about as far as the anomaly is concerned is last week we had a significant increase in inventory. And in that same week, we had buyer activity came down. So typically what happens is we'll have an increase in inventory, and then the following week we'll have a matching increase in buyer activity. Well, we had this increase in inventory last week, but this week we did not have a matching increase in buyer activity. We had a slight decrease. So it wasn't a significant decrease, it was just a little bit of a flattening decrease, but it didn't go up like you would have expected it to do. Same thing, and then as far as inventory in the last 7 days, inventory went down. So just to kind of reiterate that, so 14 days ago, between 7 and 14 days ago, inventory went up and buyer activity was down because of this down, so that matched. But then this 7 days, because the buyer activity always follows inventory, or seems to always follow inventory, we would have expected this to go up to match this increase in inventory. So we see this increase in inventory, so we would have expected a little increase right here to match that. And we didn't. We actually saw a little bit of a dip. So that's the anomaly that I'm talking about, and it's a little bit surprising. It's not the first time it's happened, but we are in the spring market, so it makes it a little bit potentially more significant. So we're just going to keep an eye on this and see, are we starting to move more towards a normal market? So in the expectation of, as we move through these times and as the market adjusts to everything that's going on, we may end up seeing that it normalizes. We don't expect a market crash because there's just not enough inventory, but we may see that everything normalizes. So this could be the beginning of normalization. It could just be a glitch, but it's something to keep an eye on. And that's why we do these market reports, so we can catch these trends a little bit early. Inventory for this past 7 days went down. So it'll be interesting to see what buyer activity does next week, to see if it comes down to match that, or if it maybe goes up to make up for the extra inventory from here. We'll just kind of see what happens with that. As far as the seller's market's concerned, since this gap actually increased a little bit, because here was buyer activity and inventory dropped more than buyer activity did. So therefore that gap was bigger than it was last week. So we saw a little bit of an increase in the strength of the seller's market. So what that basically tells us is that inventory is always the driver of seller's market, inventory versus demand. And in this case, supply went down more than demand went down, meaning there was more demand than supply. So the strength of the seller's market increased. Okay, I hope all this makes sense. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to let us know. Also, please subscribe to our channel so we can get this out to more people, and feel free to share the report. And we will see you on next week's report to see if this is just an anomaly or if it might be the beginning of something new. All right, we'll see you next week.